This is United for Biodiversity, the Alliance podcast, a platform that unites global voices in a call to action to protect our planet's rich biodiversity. Join us for critical insights and let's stand united for biodiversity.
Welcome to this week's episode of United for Biodiversity, the Alliance podcast. I am your host, Guyana Wilberg. Today, we place the spotlight on Guyana's conservation efforts over the years. Now, many of you may be under the assumption that our conservation efforts started with the Low Carbon Development Strategy 2030. But actually, Guyana's conservation efforts started much longer before that document came into being. To help us unpack Guyana's history where conservation is concerned is a very distinguished individual whose life has been immersed in the world of conservation. He is actually an advisor to the Protected Areas Commission and even served as commissioner at one point in time. Mr. Damien Fernandes, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Guyana. Thanks for having me.
So, as I noted in my introduction, Guyana's efforts with conservation predates the Low Carbon Development Strategy. Tell us a bit about those earlier efforts and how they laid the foundation for Guyana to have this modern take on protecting its nature.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, and there are many ways to answer it. Actually,
Go right ahead.
I think how I would answer it is to go a little further back. I think in Guyana, long before conservation was even a word, it was a culture, a culture of connection. You still find that culture today. You find it in communities that are very connected to the land and to these landscapes. You find it in indigenous communities, and for those cultures and those experiences, conservation is about keeping things safe, being able to use it without misusing it or use it out, as I like to say. So when conservation actually became a word was not until even I would say the 1500s, and then it wasn't until the early 1900s it began to be used in the context we know it as.
Okay.
And it wasn't long after that Guyana had its first national park, which is the Kaieteur National Park, 1929. I think that's more of the formal movement in conservation in Guyana when it comes to these labels. And I think at that point, just because of the time it was, I think nature was seen more as wilderness as opposed to self. So the approach back then was this fences and fines approach to conservation, where you create something and you remove people from it. This belief that we are separate. So I think over the years, and you see it culminate with the LCDS, Guyana has really redefined what conservation is and really centering people. So it's not just about nature, it's about people, place, and purpose. And I think as we move now forward, the LCDS really is the frame which pulls all of that together and begins that process of reconnection to the original kind of belief that to keep things safe, we use them, but we use them wisely and sustainably,
Thank you for that, Damien. And as you noted, Guyana's connection with nature, it really started a very long time ago. And one of the institutions that we've put in place is the Protected Areas Commission, which is a demonstration, once again, of how seriously we take conservation. And you were actually one of the first employees at the Protected Areas Commission. Tell us a bit about the experience there and the work of this particular agency.
Well, prior to the Protected Areas Commission, we had a National Parks Commission. So it kind of grew out of that. But it's this movement ever since independence, the movement that we've taken towards this realizing sustainability. So you and I, since we were children, we've kind of said the pledge, and the pledge ends with, I dedicate my energies towards the happiness and prosperity of Guyana. So the way we saw protected areas back then is how does this function as a tool for the happiness and prosperity of Guyana? So it's not just about, again, this traditional belief that we put things away and that's how we keep it safe. No, we're not protecting landscapes. We wanted to protect the relationships that sustain those landscapes.
So this was a part of our pledge in action.
In action, basically, and as I mean, we're not perfect. I think we did our best to personify that belief, that belief that these two things are connected, that people and nature are one and the same. So as we began to look at protected areas, we felt we needed to reimagine it through a Guyanese lens. And we need to focus on protecting that connection and that relationship. So we set an aspiration. I think the vision for the Guyana's protected area system is protecting nature and improving lives. No? Again, we've learned, we've made mistakes, and we're constantly adjusting. But I believe it's the aspiration to connect those two things, to reconnect those two things, is what sets us apart a bit.
And before I move on to my next question, because I truly think that the Protected Areas Commission has done a lot of work and good positive, it has made a positive impact. And its purpose, it's truly integral to the entire framework that we have regarding conservation. But talk a little bit about what this agency represents and what it has done to raise awareness regarding the importance of biodiversity and connecting citizens with the importance of conservation.
Yeah. I think some of these landscapes are central to the question, no? And so in one way, what the protected areas kind of do is foundational for the Guyanese identity, but at the same time, we have a lot of work to do to, again, reconnect the identity, that Guyanese identity with the land and the landscapes that give rise to it. So, for example, Kaichor Falls. I think Guyanese have very diverse experiences across the country. But one thing we share is when we see an image of Kaichor Falls, even if we're somewhere else in the world, we know that is us. That is a symbol of this Guyanese identity. And I think similarly, maybe not as well known, but similarly, places like Shell Beach and the Kanaku Mountains in Region 9, places like Iwokrama and Conashen in the Deep South, they are also very iconic, no? But they are, by nature, a bit remote and inaccessible to your everyday Guyanese person. So I think one of the opportunities we have is to treat them like living laboratories, connect them with research, education, and ensure that Guyanese have an opportunity to go into these spaces. I think a lot of Guyanese already live in those spaces, but the ones on the coast, the ones with more of a history like mine, where we spend a lot of time on the coast, I think it's not until you immerse yourself in these spaces you feel it, not just in your mind but in your heart. No,
and I think is so true.
Yeah, I think that is part of this message of reconnection that Guyana brings. No, and I think it's a message whose time has come.
And I think that's a very important point too, because we say it, but we don't truly recognize what is it we're actually doing. When we go to a different country and we talk about the things that make us who we are, we talk about our music, we talk about our food, but we also talk about our landscapes, how iconic they are. As you mentioned, Kaichor Falls, it's part of the identity that we connect with. And that makes the conversation about conservation even more important, because when you preserve these things for the next generation, it's actually a legacy that you're passing down
Yeah.
if via nature.
Yeah.
So I really love that point. And Damien, another important matter that I want to raise is the Global 30 by 30 initiative, which aims to protect 30% of the planet's land and seas by 2030. How are you advising the government of Guyana in aligning its already commendable achievements towards this particular goal?
Yeah, well, it's a goal that's been set internationally, and each country that has signed on to it has committed to, when it comes to their territory,
Yes.
to identify 30% of their territory for conservation. And by doing that over the globe, we would achieve this global 30%. So it's a very ambitious target, rightly so, because of some of the issues that we're dealing with
Yes.
globally. I think for us, maybe which is a bit different to other countries, I would say most of Guyana is covered in nature. It's like you look at Guyana from space, and it looks like this carpet of creation kind of covering the space, and you see these little pockets of people where we've kind of done agriculture and urban kind of development. But for us, it is not a question that's coming from a place of scarcity. Nature is abundant in Guyana. That's what makes us different. So then, how do you begin to build a system of areas and landscapes that conserves this carpet of creation, keeps it safe, but allows us to continue to pursue our happiness and prosperity, right? And I think what we're going to do is again turn this idea on its head, turn this idea of nature over there and us over here. That's an outdated kind of approach, no? It's not really true to us. So we're looking at how to deploy our experiences, our past. We've experimented with community-owned conservation areas. The YY led in that space. We've experimented with conservation areas in the forest estate, in timber concessions. We've had experience even something as simple as the conservancies that give us water and allow us to farm so close to the sea. Those spaces are over 100 years old at this point, and they're a form of conservation as well. Sorry. So rather than kind of, again, keeping ourselves in this very rigid frame of we need to find spaces where we can exclude people and we need to protect that, Guyana is saying, no, we will kind of look at all of our spaces and understand conservation as culture again, and how to really use our various pieces of legislation and our experience. I think one of the advantages we have is that we can look to our past and harvest from it the lessons, the mistakes, the ways to do things differently. So even though the future might be dark, a bit, in the sense that it's unknown, we have clarity on what we've attempted to do here in our country. And we will ground the future in the innovation that has kind of emerged from Guyana. So to reach this 30 by 30, I think Guyana is saying it's not just about quantity, it's about quality,
Right.
and ensuring that whatever we build is for the happiness and prosperity in Guyana and is resilient to the change that is sure to come, no? So
I
that's
love
how
that.
we want to do it, I think.
I love that you're keeping as a common thread that aspect of our pledge, because it truly is another layer that reminds us how deeply connected Guyana is to this mission of protecting its green spaces. And that brings me to the closing, but a very key and important aspect of our closing. And that pertains to the upcoming Global Biodiversity Alliance Summit from July 23rd to the 25th. Now, this alliance is the first of its kind that Guyana is going to lead from the front. What is your take on this new chapter, given the rich experience Guyana has accumulated over the years in protecting biodiversity and in showing the world that it is not just talking the talk, but it's walking the walk as well?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the big opportunities we have, and I think we've done this, we've demonstrated this, is to not wait for perfection. I think that is that's a lesson that I think Guyana could teach us as individuals, much less other countries. Don't wait for perfection. Act and do so as best as you can, and as you attempt to achieve your aspirations. And again, it's not just about reconnecting with nature or conservation. It's about the happiness and prosperity of people. I think the thing that Guyanese recognize, I suppose, because we're still so connected to the nature that dominates our space, is that it's not just about people trying to save the forest. I think it's about having the humility to recognize that the forest is trying to save us. It's trying to save us. It's where our water, food, and air comes from. So even though we kind of build economies and complex structures around our societies, at the very basic is these natural rhythms of life that give us these things that we take for granted. No? So I think Guyana has an opportunity to almost change the conversation when it comes to conservation, and really introduce words like reconnection, rootedness, resilience, and really show the world not just a model, but a mirror, no? A mirror as to what it means to be a human. I mean, we're trying to connect as best we can. We're trying to connect things like economies and things like carbon markets,
Yes.
biodiversity markets. We're trying to connect that back down to this foundational nature. But in addition to that, our role now is to reconnect humanity to nature, and reconnect ourselves. I think, I don't know if you go into the forest or go out of Georgetown often, whether it's you go into, your aunt's farm in
Yes.
Hubu Bakdam, or, you go in, even just spending some time in your garden, it shifts something in you.
It
and
does.
and I can tell you, when you go into the forests of Guyana, even in the savannas and mangroves, there is something that happens.
It's almost spiritual.
Yes, yes. I was avoiding that word, but you're right. It really it comes back to what I said at the beginning. It is a coming back to the knowing that we are nature, in a sense. No, we experience nature not as wilderness but as self. And I think Guyana is a living bridge across all of those kind of ideas, from from biodiversity markets, right down to how we see ourselves as human beings. And I think that's the lesson and that's the message, and I'm proud. I'm proud as a Guyanese to be part of that.
Damien, I want to thank you so much for enriching today's discussion and taking it forward. You've really provided such a nuanced perspective in reminding us that as we try to find solutions to this very important issue of protecting biodiversity, conserving it, and putting a value to it, that we're also connected to it, and that we should have the humility to understand that nature is doing us a favor, actually. So thank you so much for that reminder and the powerful perspectives that you've offered overall.
Thank you for your time.
To our audience, thank you as well. We hope that this conversation was as rich as enriching for you as it was for me. Please be sure to join us next week, same time, same place, as we bring you more insights regarding this very important conversation. I'm Kiana Wilberg. See you next week.
Thank you for listening to United for Biodiversity, the Alliance podcast. Be sure to follow us for more insightful episodes on our Spotify, LinkedIn, and Facebook accounts.